a.m. Eastern, any day of the week, we're here. I'm so pleased to have Christy Howard here today and Kelly. And you know, Kelly, it's almost all the time, which is great because whenever Kelly's on, we always have bigger audiences, happier people leaving, and that's what we're here for. So, we were just talking briefly before we went live, and we're just discussing how we're all starting to sense greater levels of fear out there for many different reasons or all reasons. And that's what we really want to kind of, if you want to, focus. So chat's open. If anybody's got anything they want to ask or anything they want to share, well, Chastity's here. Thank you for coming, Chastity. I know Chastity is a very good friend of Gretchen, who's going to be on tomorrow, and has been one of the anchors of the show ever since we started. So thank you, Chastity. And it's really nice that Chastity started it because it takes the first one to go forward and show up on the screen to motivate people. But I think over time, people are getting to know us and the show. And lo and behold, we've got Christine. Good morning. I'll just be tuning in and listening to you fine ladies today. Happy Sunday. Well, it's beautiful for people who know each other, care for each other, and love each other to support each other and show up for each other, because that's what makes it all worthwhile. So with that said, Christy, what's going on?
Well, I've been having a few conversations and, reading, all these people just got laid off in the tech industry, which is in Silicon Valley. And now they're getting hit with the SVB bank issue. So they don't have a job. They're looking for a job and they don't know where their money is going to be. And my prayers are for everybody out there, because we've been brought up that we trust a bank. Mm-hmm. I always tell my husband, I'm happy to stuff my money underneath the mattress. It's like, I want to touch my money. I want to be able to touch it. However, you have to invest and you have to do all that stuff and put it in a bank. And so I'm seeing the fear of that, people's confidence level, it's shot. They're not the communication, they see stuff on the media, and we know how the media, the TV media, everything that you see, it's not always correct. And I just, my heart goes out to everybody, because when we get into the fear, we're having those expectations that not only the one shoe is going to drop, the whole flipping house is going to come down on you burning. And that might not happen. I mean, you might realize that this is a shift in what's happening in your life, in the world, but to be able to look at the positives that you have. You're breathing. You do have a home. I know both Kelly and I believe you too, Don, we've been to the point where it's sort of like $5 here, where do we put it? But we figured out, but it made us grow. I had a conversation with somebody the other day that they put money in an investment, and they put all the eggs in one basket, and it didn't go well. I mean, it was in the Maddox, whatever the guy's name is, but it hasn't gone well because the person had to turn around and file bankruptcy, and just the lifestyle has changed. However, this person now sees what he's had to go through to become who he is now. So when that money does come into his life, he's going to be a better person and understand that everything can disappear but you can still have your confidence in yourself and just say, hey, I'm going to be okay. My house is not going to, it still goes back to the people that you surround yourself with. Mm-hmm. And get rid of the nonsense that you think or the fear of the next step. Just take one step at a time. What do you say, Kelly? I mean, you and I have had this conversation over the years.
A few.
Yeah.
It's one of those things too, when you're in the fear. I mean, what comes right to my mind, Christy, is what you say all the time is get out of your head. Because as soon as we're in that space of fear, we start formulating in our brain all the most crazy scenarios. We go to the absolute worst. We never are in reality. Like what we ever imagine something to be, it's usually so much worse what we imagine than what actually happens. But you're right. I mean, watching the fear and when people are in it, what it does to their confidence and, you spiral. And I say that from personal experience. I mean, I've been there and it's hard to get your head out and shake it and go like, okay, I need a new perspective and I need to look at this a little bit different. And it is, but I feel like that's one of the reasons, obviously, that we're here is to be able to help people in the sense of giving them the support and to feel that they've got somewhere to talk. I mean, I certainly wish I had the power to fix the banking system because I'm with you. I sort of feel like, and this would be a Paul's specialty for sure, is, your money in the bank is really doing nothing. Particularly if you're at certain banks, you've got fees. So good Lord, you're paying them to keep your money. So, I mean, it's so complex. And I think, especially here and to everyone, this morning, the clock has sprung forward. Arizona, we do not change our clock. And I had this overwhelming feeling like I don't know, 10 to 8. I was like, oh my gosh, did the time change last night or does it change tonight? So I did I asked Siri what time it was in New York City, and she was like, oh, it's, it was 7 minutes to 11. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. So there's that on top of it, which will throw everybody off today, right? On top of just the craziness that's going on in the world. But I'm grateful I made it. So there's that. I shook it up for myself. Don, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've got quite a few thoughts, and I think it's a great topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, since I've been self-sufficient and self-dependent, since I was 15 or so, I've been affected by the outside world, but that's not where your strength or weakness is going to come from. It's from within. And that's why I always say it's who you become, how much better you get, because, there's so many millions of people. And even when people say unemployment is whatever it is, small or large, people worry, and what are you in the last 1 percentile that's going to slip into unemployment, or are you at the top of your game? Which, even in the worst of times, best people are even in higher demand, and I think along with what Christine said here is everybody fights until it's survival, and then they have to come together.
Yeah.
Right. And I trust a lot of people to do the right thing when they have to, not when they should. But with that said, that's why a program, a community like this is so important, because at the end of the day, money comes and goes. I've seen lots come and lots go, and I never knew which way was up sometimes. But I always knew I had a reserve of friends and family who cared enough about me that if I would come to them with a legitimate situation, they would want to help me. And that's where you build those relationships, because two things I know for sure now: institutions are broken and they're never going to get better, only worse, right? So if you're waiting for the cavalry to show up, you're waiting a long time, and don't be surprised when you get disappointed. The other thing I believe in is the only thing you can believe in is what your heart tells you, because the media is tearing to shreds everything. I mean, honesty is a joke. And, if someone was smart, maybe they'd have a happy, honest show for a change.
Yes.
And that's what they would call it. Good news. Look at who got married today. Look at who graduated. I mean, and enjoy it, and that's what I think the shift is going to be, is because people are sinking in their own mildew as they're screaming their lungs out on the way down. And a lot of people say, you have taken advantage of me. I've taken actions or investments because someone told me to do it, right? And now I find out they never believed it.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and that's where this show comes in, is a gentleman like Paul, right? Or anybody here is not going to think up ways to mislead to take advantage of. And, after a while, you know what you know. They say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because once you know and you know better, then it's up to you to make an action step. And I think if anything, and I agree with Christy to the point that it's going to spiral. You got to be in a position, to be self-sufficient. And a lot of people, it's hard. They got to cut their expenses.
Yeah.
They're working for things that aren't serving them, but they're doing jobs that they don't even like because they're servicing their debt. Yep. They're servicing the boat, the car, the country club, that's the private schools. And who are you living for? Most other people's judgment. And I think that's where reality, being real, being authentic, and maybe for the first time in ever or a long time, can somebody get to that point, because that's where the beauty in children are. They haven't gotten to where we are. They're still fresh. They're still innocent. They're still open. And I think that's what we have to be, is more childlike in how we treat ourselves, and much stronger in how we relate to the outside world, right? It's like, you're knocking on the wrong door if you're knocking for that reason, and the sooner you block people, the sooner you leave people, now it's not a matter of, will you do it? How fast can you get it done? Mm-hmm. Right? Because when I worked and I had a lot of stuff, I never left that office without a clean desk. I never walked into yesterday's stuff. It was either give it to them, I'll take care of it right now, or it ain't ever going to happen. But why keep hanging on to stuff that's already served you or not? And I think in this crazy world, you need more peace of mind.
Oh, amen.
So, here we have Paul says, and I agree with him, I think integrity is about always doing the right thing, not just when it's convenient. They say, integrity is always proven in the dark, when no one's looking.
Right.
When you're doing the right thing that no one will ever even know if you didn't do the right thing. Because you got an obligation to yourself. You should have some level that, and that's where people say, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed. But who put that label on you?
Right.
If you even were convicted, they would tell you how long you're going to serve.
Yeah.
Right. So it's okay. I'm ashamed for how long? 10 days, a month? Is it going to be a life sentence?
Yeah.
You'd appeal something like that. And Paul then comes back to say, and maybe Paul's the best person to talk about finance.
Exactly.
Because we're talking about mindset, not bank accounts. This whole financial system is broken down. It's why before my time here is up, I'm going to change it. Well, I hope so, because it definitely needs people like
I believe he will.
To be on the vanguard, to drive change. But that's where your voice is. You can wait for someone else, but you can start today yourself.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Paul is so wise beyond his years. I mean, we've spoken, and I worked in financial services for a majority of my career. So both on the wealth management side as well as the investment side, capital markets and private equity. So Paul and I were able to have a deep conversation. His passion about how he shares is beautiful, and it is so exactly what he just said. It's integrity. He just wants to help people. He could likely go do things and make a lot of money off of people, but that is in no way his purpose, which makes him so, he's one of those young people that gives me such hope, not just in myself, but in the future of these young minds and how they think and how he approaches finance and his clients. It honestly, and I mean that from my core, I don't say this for just because he's going to make a difference, is my thought completely after speaking with him, hearing him speak. What are your thoughts, Christy?
Oh, no, Paul's like, I'm going to now start blasting him because people need to talk to Paul.
Yes, they do.
They trusted in other people, and unfortunately, I have seen it where the person who's taking care of your money, they're doing it for themselves.
Yes,
They're not doing it for you. The bank's not doing it for you. They're trying. I just closed an account out of Texas. They sent me the money that was in the account, and then somebody screwed up. It was a automatic payment, and the account was closed. They put it through, and now they're charging me that, and they're charging me the fee of putting it through. So I'm having to call on Monday. It's like, wait a minute, you guys closed it. That's when you pop it back, because I saw that they hadn't gotten charged. I changed the account, and yeah, I believe in the mattress, which isn't the right decision. You need to invest it in different places. But I like to know where my money is that I worked hard for, over somebody having the control of it.
Well, and I think even now too, right? Because the world has changed quite dramatically. Certainly in our lifetime. I mean, here local in Arizona, rents are ridiculous. I can't even begin to say how ridiculous they are. I'm astonished by it, and seeing people, 2020, when they put off, I can't remember what it was actually called, but you didn't have to pay your rent. If you didn't get charged penalties. But the fact of the matter is, you were going to owe that money once that was dropped. You just weren't going to have to pay the late fees. So for all of those people that didn't pay their rents, and then this happened in my complex where I was living, that a bunch of people got evicted after it came back because they owed like 10 months worth of rent that they didn't pay. And they certainly didn't have the money to pay it. So they got kicked out. And of course, you can't afford to buy a house. And that's the other part, is so many people with not just the inflation rates and such, but they were using their savings when they were laid off in 2020 or what have you. So now not only are rents high, but you can't afford to put a down payment on a home because I've dipped into my savings, as an example. So I don't have that money there anymore to put a down payment. So it's kind of this, slippery slope, if you will, that it's like, once you're on it, it's like, how the heck do I get off?
And plus they're cashing out their 401k. And a lot of people, they don't realize you cash out that 401k, you got a whole bunch of taxes that you got to pay. So in the end,
yes,
that money, you're having to pay the taxes. I mean,
that's right.
Kelly, I was looking at just rent, because I always would love to go back to Scottsdale, but I love Florida. And now it's not going to happen.
I know.
On the beach.
But you can always stay with me.
Or you can always come and watch my dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was looking at rents in certain areas, and I was appalled on the small houses. $9,000 for a 2-bedroom house and it's ridiculous. I mean, I own 2 homes in Texas, and I will not, in the last 5 years, I won't raise the rent. I mean, I have a mortgage on one, but I won't raise the rent because it's stupid, because people are only making so much money. Mm-hmm. And
But you're not the norm. I mean,
No, I'm not. No, I'm definitely not.
That's for so many reasons. But this kind of goes to what we were talking about yesterday, Dawn, with you and how you've looked at like your employees as an example. You look at the human, and you don't add value based on, the employee or the function that they're filling for the cog in your wheel of your business. And same, Christy, you see people as human beings, and is not a renter that's making you money, but how can I help them? And that's not the norm, unfortunately. So, I mean, I haven't seen anyone around here lately that's been like, you know what, we're not going to raise the rents. And it's ridiculous how much it goes up. I'm getting ready to move into my best friend's house. She's going to be in Germany for about 3.5 years. So it was going to be vacant in that way. And I'm like, I'll pay your mortgage. It's way cheaper than rent, because rent honestly is like 2 times as much is a mortgage at minimum. Like it's stupid how much rents are. I've looked at new places and small places here, and I mean, you're talking a 700 square foot apartment for like $2,500 a month. That's insane. I mean,
Yeah, but you see, things are changing so quickly in every way. No one can keep up with it, right? And the other thing, if you look at housing, interest rates have doubled.
Don't even get me
Right.
started.
So when you're talking about when it used to be 3.5%, 4% on let's say $1 million house, and now it goes to 7%, you just went from 40,000 a year to 70,000 a year just on interest.
Yep.
And then property taxes keep going up, utilities keep going up, maintenance is unbelievable when you got to get someone out to fix something, and the cost of anything. So if everything's going up that's hurting you, those are the things you need to get away from. And I know it's hard. I know there's a lot of people say, if you're deep in debt, sell the house, move in with your parents or your brothers or sisters for 6 months, get yourself healthy again, and get out of the rat race, because if people are waiting 8 months or 10 months to get a job, it's not like before. You lose a job, 2 weeks later, you get a job. So, and sometimes you even did better when you got your new job. But now it's like, do I want to really put all this on the line? It's kind of funny. I look at some game shows very rarely, but in the moment, someone's got like $200,000 that they can walk away with. And someone says, do you want to take a chance, double or nothing? And they typically do, because they think they're a star from it. But if you gave them that $200,000 check, say, come back in a week and give us your decision, and that money's in the bank. Whoever bet $200,000 who didn't have any money for getting 400 and ever going home, and the whole world says, you dumbbell, you got 200,000 in your hand and you decide to go double or nothing, like you're, some big shot. So,
isn't it because people see it like is free money, which is so crazy to me.
There's nothing free.
Right. And there's some people who honestly, for some reason, are more comfortable broke, because if you look at all the lottery winners,
I was just about to bring that up.
I won $12 million. I used to work at a factory for $700 a week, and now they got money that they don't ever have to even worry about. And before you know it, they're going into business, and they never went into business. They're lending money to friends. They're buying cars for the world, and then they're back buying their $2 lottery ticket again, trying to get back there. So, that's why groups are so important, because they can tell you things you'd never want to hear for yourself, may never tell yourself. Mm-hmm. But if someone says, hey, a financial person, someone who knows it, someone who can share.
Paul.
Yeah, like what I do and what happens when I do it, versus now I'm a genius in every area that you want to talk about. That's important. I know if someone would have told me certain things at certain times, it would have made a huge difference. Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing about trauma and tragedy. No matter how much you learn from it and get healthy from it, you would have loved to skip it.
Well,
right?
I know that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Christy.
I know that, back in my age, in the 70s and 80s, they didn't teach you finance. I mean, I don't know math. My husband's very good at math, and I'll literally tell him, I'm not going to think. I will not think about numbers. It bothers me. And so I never really understood the value of, as Paul puts it, the money. I mean, I started working at 13, but I spent. I mean, my parents were, they did well, middle class, but I never, thought about, the credit. I mean, at one point in my life, my sister was living with me, and she looked out, she goes, your car's gone. But I had a beautiful closet full of clothes. And she's like, it's been stolen. I go, no, I think it's been repoed. And, I was in my 20s, but for me to get that money, it was like no problem for me to get the car out of the repo. But I never concentrated on paying my bills, getting what was important, getting my priorities, because I was really never taught. And, when my dad died, he was just sort of like, shame on him. He's like, I never taught you how to do this.
Huh. See, now
but
I will say my
society didn't teach us. See, where I was growing up, I wasn't taught.
No, school never taught us any of that. And
party.
The reason I knew the value of $1 was because of my parents, and mostly driven by my father. I was blessed in the way of, I had a full-time mom at home and my dad worked, but we were not, we were middle class, but we struggled. I mean, it was not, my dad worked hard and wanted to provide for his family. And I lived in an area of Southern California that there was definitely kids that were quite wealthy where I grew up. I wasn't one of them. And I mean quite wealthy in the sense of like, we had the My Sweet 16, whatever that MTV show is. Some of my friends had those parties. I didn't. But I used to ask, like, how come I can't I want an allowance? Like, I had friends that got like $100 a week. And thinking back to when I was a kid, that was a ton of money. And then they wondered why they ended up on drugs, or the parents ended up wondering why their kids were on drugs. But I asked for allowance. And one of the things was my parents said, no, you do not get an allowance. Part of your job living in this household is giving work. And if you do more than that, we'll consider. And granted, I could get money to go to the movie and that kind of thing as long as I did my chores. And when I came to move out, which I was I wanted to get out in corporate America as soon as possible. So I was one of those. I went to Recruiter, got a job right out of high school, and went to college part-time. But I had to list out a budget and show how much rent was, how much my car was, how much car insurance, and how much I could also save. Like, savings had to be part of the equation. And that's from my parents. But to your point, Christy, 100%. They never taught us anything in school about finance. And in working in the financial services space, registered investment advisor during the crash in 2007 here, you'd be astonished at how many people that I saw, one, that were like, I retired too soon, now I've got to go back to work, but also how many women who were, widowed, and they came in and they had no idea about any of their finances. Like, it was.
My mother was the same way when my father died.
Yeah,
took care of everything.
Right, but it was just what they did because that's not what you knew. Mm-hmm. And I still feel like they lag in teaching that, in the sense of, because I think kids now being raised with, their wallet that's in their phone or a credit card, they don't have the tangible money. There was something that you did gain value of knowing, I'm going to go babysit for 5 hours and I'm going to get paid when I'm finished. And I touch that money. It's a sense of accomplishment. So I think the transaction change in the world to electronic, as convenient as it also is taken away from that deep understanding of the value of $1 and that transaction of, I just did this hard work and I just received money. And now I can go purchase those cool shoes, because I'm sure that's what Christy did. And she does have amazing shoes.
I used to. Got rid of them all because it was material stuff.
Yeah, but that's not what kids understand anymore. And I'm not saying all of them, because I know that there are families that still push that, but it's not it's certainly not in our school system. I think people are shocked when they go out and when they get in debt the way that they do. It's because they have no understanding, truthfully, of what's coming. And now with people in more debt, like you said, Dawn, with the interest rates and all of these, it's suffocating. But that's only if you really understand it, in the sense of, like, you're still responsible for all of this. And I don't think that so many have the same understanding or the same way that we grew up to appreciate money. And I'm with you, Christy, when you say, like, over the years, I definitely downsized so much, and material things do not, but it's because, I've gone through some life stuff. Material things don't mean the same thing to me as they did when I was younger.
Well, and I also, after the repo and, understanding what money was, I ended up for over 20 years, just whatever was in my cash, would not use a credit card. It was, if I had the money in the bank, I could do something. So that's how I learned about that. You know, it's my money. I can't use, I mean, I use credit cards now, but I'm very cautious about my credit cards. But I would just, if I need this and I have money and I can afford to have that pair of shoes. I mean, Kelly knows I live for consignment. Somebody else's trash is my treasure. Hence, when I moved to Florida, I had 250 pairs of high heels, but I don't have those anymore. It just understanding that, one, that helps your credit, but two, you're not spending and then having to pay that extra, you know, the interest. You're not constantly paying the bank for what you feel that you need. Because a lot of times, you know, when I went through my depression on and off all my life, you know, people go through depression and they go, you know, have alcohol, drugs. Mine was retail therapy. Anytime I went on a spending spree of clothes or something like that, I always knew I was going down to that dark space, because it was making me feel better, because it was a material thing. And I've, you know, gotten out of that, and obviously my finances have gotten a lot better. So,
well, you know, with all this said, you know, I think what's important for people to take away, because there are no absolutes, and we're in some significantly turbulent, changing times, that most people don't know the past. I think the people who I were raised by and that culture, they went through the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they went through everything we're talking about might happen here, and they lived it. It wasn't like a bad film they had to watch. And they got to learn what food was, and they understood people were putting 12 people in a house, right? I mean, if you had a cousin that was on the outs and didn't have a place to live or eat, it's like you're finding a place somewhere. And, you know, people helped each other. And I think that's what happened in World War II. You know, people had victory gardens, and people had rationing, and everybody was pitching in. And that's the key, is when everybody's separating and dividing and then adding anger to the formula, you're almost like, I got to pick a side, and I don't even want to be into that stuff. I got enough to deal with, right? Without getting into this macro, you know, thing that's never going to get fixed. And I think that people are going to have to understand they've been real lucky. Some people have only seen the up.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, all they knew was, hey, you buy a house, it goes up. You buy stock, it goes up. You know, it like all goes up. But they don't understand what goes up does come down, even if it's temporarily. And if you can't manage it down, you know, the guy who taught me so much, I was partners for 12 years, a gentleman out in Michigan. His whole philosophy, paid up inventory, no debt. I could survive anything longer than everybody else. And he did. And he ended up buying everybody out at a discount who didn't prepare. You know, so it's just like the Three Little Pigs. Someone built their house with brick, and somebody built their house with straw. But now's the time to start getting ready. And if nothing else, you got ready, right? If it never happens, you're in a better position. You got to ask yourself at a certain point, is this object more important than food, right? Because food's essential. Right? And if I'm going to buy this to look at or wear versus make sure I got food. And the other thing is, you know, when I grew up, the first job and the only job, I made $1.15 an hour to start. And I was in the union too. So I had to pay $5 a month union dues to protect my $1.15 an hour. And when I left 2.5 years later, and I left number one packer, that was my goal, I was making $1.35 an hour. And what was even more interesting is I never kept one paycheck. Every paycheck I gave to my mother, right? She was working so hard, and I gave her every check. But I kept all my tips. And I made so much on tips. And that's how I taught myself to be polite, because it was a pretty high-end grocery store. and people would come in, and at that point, you could have someone walk you to your car.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and what I had is I had these ladies, and one lady, she was such a sweetheart. She was about 80, and she'd come in every day and buy like a little bag of stuff and ask me to walk her to her car.
Oh,
And every day she gave me $1. And somehow she knew my birthday and she gave me $5. And that was like 5 hours worth of work.
Right.
And she just kept kind of tutoring me. You know, she was exquisite. I mean, she'd come in with these knit outfits and it was just, you know, and then there were more ladies and they would just ask for me, you know, so hey, if Don here, you know, I don't want this guy. I mean, we're just 15, 16 years old. So we were, you know, whatever people wanted us to do. But that taught me so much. But I'll tell you the final end of the story. My mother ended up getting remarried and I graduated college and I never got nothing. And I didn't want anything knowing how tough it was. You didn't even ask, right? Because people look like, you know, there ain't nothing there for that. And that's why I started picking up a snow shovel, painting, doing lawns. You know, I was making money, you know. So anyways, I graduate and my mother says to me, well, what kind of present would you like? And I said, present? What is that? You know? And I said, listen, Ma, whatever makes you happy makes me happy. So she said, well, I was thinking about giving you some cash or giving you a car.
wow.
I said, wow, where's a car coming from? And she said, you know, every check you gave me, I saved for you.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah, and she says, you got $3,200. And I know if I wouldn't have taken it, you would have spent it.
that's it. Yep.
You know, and now you can get a car or take the cash.
Mm.
And, you know, it just shows you again, you give out of your heart because you want to help,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
right? And the person who receives it wants to help you, right? And it comes back to, because there's a responsibility, right? It's unwritten. And that's why all this financial and legal mumbo jumbo, you know, I always did business with a handshake. Sometimes you need documentation, but hey, it was between me and you.
Yep.
You know, and there ain't enough paperwork or lawyers in the world that's going to make people do something they don't want to do or don't feel like doing.
Yes. Don't you
And-
feel like it makes me so sad that that is a lost art in the sense of your word isn't worth anything anymore until you have a lawyer draft something up, which
And sometimes that doesn't even mean anything.
yes, because then you can still fight it and twist it and turn it in 90 different ways. But it's just, it honestly goes back, and listening to you say all those things, Dawn, it's like, God, life was so simple in a way.
Yep.
And it was beautiful. And it's just, it's kind of a shame that no one will know that. Just even, I totally forgot about, oh my gosh, people, I do remember when I was little, sometimes someone would come out and help with the groceries. And that's not even a thing anymore. You can't ask.
We have it here.
Yeah.
Publix is very big on that.
Oh, well, that's awesome. But it
Yep.
used to be like you were asked when you were checking out, do you need assistance to your car? Like that was part of the service. Or even at the gas station, do you need me to check your oil? Do you need that? You know, those little things. But I think that the beauty of the story you just told about your mom, which just so touched my heart. I love that so much. But it taught you such a lesson about money. Like, I mean, what a way to be like, holy moly, I didn't realize that all of that equaled $3,200. And it wasn't painful to do it. Like, what a great way to teach you about saving and appreciate money. And I mean, that's just so sweet. And it did remind me of when I did move out and I had to do my budget to show that I could afford it. And I was told, you know, when you walk out that door, the checkbook here is closed, which I think a lot of people don't even know what a checkbook is anymore or know how to balance it. And so when I moved out, I had to pay for everything on my own. It wasn't, you don't come back and ask us to help you. But several months later, I did have a roommate that like bailed on us, and I never asked my parents for any money, but we had to cover this other person's rent, which of course, when you have an additional $150 to pay when you're a kid, that's a lot of money. And so I used to go home on Sundays and have dinner with my family and do laundry. And and when I was going to leave, my mom handed me a folded up check, stuck it in my hand, and she goes, "This is from your father." And it was because I didn't ask for anything, but they wanted to help me because they knew that it was a lot extra for me to pay and wanted me to still be able to save my money. So, but I appreciated it so much. And it meant, I'm pretty sure I got in my car and started crying. I'm totally a crier, because it touched me in the way of, I didn't ask, but they still did it. And it reminds you that the people that are around you, that love you, are always there for you. Even if it isn't a lot, I'm grateful that at that time in my life, my parents did have disposable income. But I understand, in some cases, families don't have that. But even if it was just, a few bucks, it's just that action of doing something and being like, we're here to support you. How great that feels. And I can't imagine. And my heart just felt so great when you were saying that your mom was like to give you the money or buy you a car because you have $3,200 and it was yours. Like you did that. And just how wonderful that had to feel.
Yeah, and I ended up buying a brand new 72 Camaro with it.
Nice.
Yeah, because my mother said, "Why don't you get some practical like this? I like an Impala or something." I said, "Ma, let me buy you the Impala if that's the car you want." Because I never knew I was getting this money, and I never expected it back. So I don't even feel like it's actually mine. And I think that's the key. Is these lessons, unless you learn it for yourself. See, the nice thing about learning early, it hurts so much more because you're so surprised that something like that could happen, and it lasts so much longer in your mind. If you were 8, 9 years old or 10 years old and you lost a $5 bill, that was like 50 today, and you'd be out of your mind. But you'd be more cautious about where you put that $5 bill next time. And, it's painful when there is no backup.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier. "Oh, I screwed up. Well, hey, Dad, can you give me 10 grand? And okay, no problem." Versus with me, it's like, "Hey, you do whatever you want, but if you get into something, you're going to have to figure out how to get out of it."
Yes.
There's nothing there for that kind of stuff. So I got total freedom, and you grow up faster.
Yeah.
You find out that everybody's got things you don't have, and in a lot of cases you used to have, right? If you lose a parent, if you lose something early on, you become marginalized without even knowing anything about it, right? And when you learn that, and I remember it was actually Anne who told the story, growing up in a very small town where in her grade there was only one other girl. Right? And the girl had some special needs, and saw how awfully she was treated by not only other kids, but by the school and the system.
Yeah.
And that gave her a greater appreciation for what it is for those marginalized people who are marginalized for no reason of their own, but they just don't fit. And that carries forward into the labor market. Right? There's so many good people. And, getting back to handshakes, bankers used to get to know people.
Yes.
Hey, Jim's a fine pillar in the community, and he does this, and I know his family, I'll bank on Jim. Now it's like, hey, your number's spit out. You didn't make the cut.
Yep.
Too bad. And the other thing, if you look at it, when I was growing up, gas stations, they had guys dressed up in uniforms with bow ties.
Yes.
And they surround you. One would open your hood, start checking your oil, washing your windshield, giving you free glasses that they used to give away. Now it's like, pump your own, come inside and pay. you know, you go to the grocery store, they keep getting more and more self-checkouts.
Oh my, absolutely.
You know, and pretty soon they're going to ask you to unload a truck while you're there,
Yeah.
if they can get you to. And that's why I think retail's dead, because prices keep going up, service keeps going down, crime keeps going up, you know, or they'll have a bunch of robots running around, because I was in a Sam's Club and they got these floor cleaning machines with nobody on them. Right? And all of a sudden you look up and there's a machine 2 inches from you that's like an elephant, but somehow it stops before it runs you over. But I'm thinking to myself, how long before all this is just machines?
Well, I just saw something the other day, which honestly, it was one of those moments where I was like, that just happened. I went down to, I was in Tempe, around ASU campus, go Devils. And I was driving down University, and all of a sudden I see this, what looks like a cooler with the flag sticking up, like it was a very tall and like orange flag on it, and it was moving. And I was like, oh my God, that's like food delivery. And it was on the street by itself. And I didn't see where it went, but it was just like, how is that normal? And it just, it caught me off guard, but it made me chuckle. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. And we have a lot of those driverless cars around here that look so weird. And I just think that whole thing to me is so strange, because now the nostalgia that is coming out of today is so awesome. Because even talking about the attendants in the gas station, you know, dressing up, that was a little before my time, but I've seen that. But it also reminded me of like airlines. When you used to fly,
you used to dress up.
Yes, like it was an experience. And nowadays, I'm like, man, you go to the airport and you're next to somebody that's in their pajamas and hasn't showered in 8 days. You know what I mean? And that's normal.
Yeah. You know, I remember airplane travel where it was linen napkins,
yes,
steak or chicken. They had magazines. They had pillows. They
also used to smoke in the airplanes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but you know, the thing is that's where everybody was born into it, and slowly it got a lot better. It was getting a lot worse. You know, smoking was the thing. You know.
Yeah, my mom, when she had me, which I almost was delivered in the waiting room, I wanted to get out real fast. She was smoking and drinking martinis before I came, and the moment she had me, she turned around and lit up a cigarette and had another martini. Now that might be an issue, that what's wrong with me, but no, there's nothing wrong with me. But that was just that generation. That was that generation.
If you look back, the Flintstones were sponsored by Winston cigarettes.
Yes.
So you got these cartoons.
Yes.
And you know, again, people are gullible. If you promote it, they even had in the 40s, they had magazine ads with doctors recommending, you know, I had a doctor with his doctor outfit on recommending this for your throat or your heart or whatever. And so, you know, when you talk about misinformation, as long as there's been people, there's been misinformation. You know, how many auto companies had safety issues they knew about? And
no seatbelts.
Or whatever. And I think the other thing, if you look at these driving cars, because I believe Domino's has a whole fleet of self-delivery trucks or whatever you want to call them. That was something that people enjoyed doing, was driving.
Yes, freedom.
Getting, you know, everybody had station wagons, or you look at the trunks of some of those cars, you can put 3 bodies in there. And they pack up and they go for a day trip, or they go to the beach. I mean, you know, and that was so nice. And now it's like robots are saying, you don't have to drive anymore. You can let us do it. You don't have to do anything. It's sort of
like you know, we grew up with the Jetsons, you know, that TV show, The Jetsons. And I worked for a company that does robotics. So in the area that I used to oversee, I used to have to deal with a robot. His name's Yumi. And it could make coffee. It could, you know, do everything. But I get the robots, but I don't want it taking over my life. It's just like, I want I'm still old school. I'm still, you know,
You're human though. I feel like and we say that so much. I mean, I know I'm like, it's old school to want human connection. But it's human. Like that's what we need as human beings. And which is why I do think this translates today is because everybody still needs those same basic things. And Paul, I do agree with you. Being in the airport on layovers, you hear the most amazing stories. The people watching is fantastic. But it is funny that we say that it's old school, and it's like, but it shouldn't be old school. And it's so funny to think of. I mean, granted, I'm a marketer, so I geek out on all of those old school promotions and advertising strategies and such. And it is crazy to think that cartoons were sponsored by cigarette companies. And it didn't mean anything back then. I mean, God, there used to be cigarette machines. My first paying job, I was the neighborhood babysitter from 12 on. But my first job at 16, which I was required to get, like when you turn 16, you will have a job. And I grew up in a small town, which is now massive. But my first job was at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which was super fun. I had the best time, but there were cigarette machines all around an amusement park. It was for children. I mean, so anybody could go buy. You just needed, you know, a few quarters. I don't remember how much they were, but that's crazy to think that that was a normal thing growing up, that you could just go buy cigarettes at any age, where I think now, and granted, I have no idea, but you have to, I think, show ID. You have to be a certain age now, and I'm sure they're like $10 a pack or something insane because nobody should be smoking. That's just my opinion.
Well, you know, to that point, I remember I just was in a grocery store and I looked at a pack of cigarettes. It's $10.
Dang.
And you know, when I was growing up, they had all those pull vending machines, right?
Yeah.
So you put your quarter in or 35 cents, pull the thing, and a pack would fall. And it was 35 cents. And my wife's girlfriend, her dad was in the military, and at the PX they were like $2 a carton. You know, so when they're that accessible, and back then, if you had a party, you put cigarettes out on every table. Yep. Right? So people had a little cigarette thing. If you went to Vegas and casinos, every place was cigarettes, cigarette people. And, you know, up until recently, can you imagine being a dealer and sitting there all day long and people blowing, 4 or 5 people blowing smoke at you, you know, and how bad you smell when you get out of one of those places. And people put up with it. That's the thing.
Because they didn't know anything different.
That's right.
For me, you know, listening to what we were, you know, how we started about the fear and the banking and everything, and Paul made the point that everybody wants to be with, you know, step up with the Joneses, and you know, they have that, so I need to have that. I need to have that big house, even though I'm one single person. I mean, you don't need all that stuff. And when we get to the point that you realize, as I said, I got a car repoed, I had to realize, like, you know something, I can only spend what I have. Mm-hmm. And now people understanding, don't get into the fear of where you are financially or your job or whatever. Take a look at everything and write down what you know, go and sell the stuff, you know, make some money off of it. That's what we did in 2007, you know, 07. Consignment. Mm-hmm. That's why consignment was huge. I mean, North Scottsdale, all those people had all those big homes, and then they went into foreclosure. So all the wives had to get rid of their Chanels and all that, you know, all that stuff. And that's why, you know, I'm trying to think of the word, but you reevaluate what's important to you and understand, is the material things that important to you?
Right.
Or do you even have a choice at that point? Because you know, you're better off doing something before someone makes you do it, and you know that's going to happen, right? Because one thing I found, especially about turnarounds and restructurings and debtor resolutions, is you want to get out in front of everything before someone finds out you knew it and didn't say it.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to be the one to give the bad news first and give a chance to put it in perspective and show you're a straight shooter.
Yep.
Because that's what really people are looking for is who are you, what are you made of, and how long can you maintain who you are? And that's why even on this show, I've seen people, won't name them, but we're like, this is the greatest, has turned my world. I don't see them again, right? And so either it was enough to put them on their way, which would be great,
Right.
or they found another shining object the next day and decided to follow that. So whatever you do, commit to doing it consistently. You can't, today I'm not going to eat very much, and tomorrow I'm going to eat like crazy, right? I mean, it's get on a path that's comfortable for you, and start turning up the heat over time. And get yourself in a position where you can handle situations. But here's the last thing I'll add to it is we can all do the right thing, and everything can fall apart on us, right? Because if inflation keeps going up, even people with money won't have money,
Right.
right? And if people with money got to pay for people without money, they won't have money. So it's really getting, and that's where I think the investment should be made is with children early on. I can't see how we can't have food for everybody. Okay, enough for breakfast and lunch to have two really good meals. We should have preschool situations. We should have special accommodations for working parents, right? That allow them to work and make money, because the incentive should be do better, be better.
Yep.
Right? Don't do better, pay more taxes and share it with someone else. And so I think that as a community, that's never going to happen at the top, because there's too much greed, too much corruption, too much old boy network stuff, right? It's going to happen peer to peer where we're at, and we're here, and there's such a total amount of value and treasure in so many people, especially older people. When you figure only 2.2% of the people on LinkedIn are over 55. Okay. And then take that up to 65, where most people start retiring. Like Christy talks about her dad, right? If someone had access to somebody like that, and her dad had access to being of service where you can do it from your living room, there's millions of people who have a wealth, who want to stay relevant, who want to help people, but they don't know how to access them either way. If you create a bridge, because it's not that there's too many young people, there's too few older people.
Yep.
Right? To make that number better, you don't want to take it from another number, but you got to give them reasons why this is a place where they'll be respected. A lot of people who are discriminated against use that to discriminate against themselves by pulling out of things, right? They scare people away, or they make sure they're not welcome, right? And that's where these collaboration groups, or at least branded theme shows, could be the 50 plus hour, right? Since there's only 2% of the people out there, and you would attract new people coming in the right way versus going into the mob, posting, commenting, learning. And I think there is a technology challenge for a lot of older people that's in their mind, not really in their ability. Yeah. That if they could plug in to an empowerment group that could show them what they could gain here, because a lot of people don't have purpose. I was living in a community that was really, really high end. It was like, how soon can we get the wine out? That was the big decision of the day. Can we start drinking at 4? Can enough people come over? And then it wasn't talking about that. It was river cruises or knee replacements or hip replacements. It's just idle time with idle people. And I eventually had to leave that whole scene.
Well, I think a lot
sorry. After a while. Go ahead, Christy.
I think, and I totally agree with what you're saying, especially, people our age. And especially on LinkedIn, I think, and I've battled this a few times, and that's why this is the first time that I've I scream. I'm over 60. I've had 40 years of experience, because a lot of the younger people are I know more than you do. No, you actually don't, because you haven't really lived life yet. And I don't call myself an expert on anything. I'm not even an expert on my own life, because I take that one day at a time. I'm just still figuring that crap out. But I feel that, as you said, older people want to share their experience, but they get shut down. It's like goes on deaf ears, because they all know everything. And they don't know, they don't want to hear from you.
And
So-
isn't it
So we
interesting?
go open up that bottle of wine at 4:00 and talk about river cruises.
And isn't it interesting, because I do remember, whether it was my grandma, I always liked being around older people.
So
I don't know why, I just did. I was so interested in their stories and what have you. But I remember them saying, we're just like you. We still feel the same way inside. And of course, as a kid, I couldn't wrap my brain around what that really meant. But now as I'm older, I'm like, I am still the ridiculous child on the inside that I was when I was 10. And people don't really get that. And it's like embracing the fact of that, like you were saying, Christy, to piggyback on that, we've lived life a lot more than you have. And so maybe we do have something to offer that you could listen and learn from. It's not because people who are, and kids do think, because I remember I thought the same, if you were over 30, you were old. That people over 30 probably know a little bit more than you. And not just about technology. It's not about things. It's about life, and it's about experience. And it's those basic things that I feel are so missing in today's world. It actually saddens me that kids are raised with a smartphone in their hand. And I'll always say a smartphone, the irony that it's called a smartphone and it sucks your brain out because you don't think anymore. But it's all about selfies, how many filters, what I look like, what I have. Am I an influencer? Am I all of these things? And it's like, but at the end of the day, like the only thing that we're all guaranteed is death. And I don't mean that as a downer, but in the sense of we don't leave this planet and people go, man, she was an amazing influencer and she had 200 pairs of shoes and she had a bank account that was this much. It's about the impact that you make on another human being.
But it's also about having the conversation. So I'm not saying, I love learning from younger people. I love being around younger people. I like being around older people.
Yeah.
People that are like, my mom's going to be 87, 88. I don't know. I keep on, but I mean, she's going to outlive us all because of her mindset. I mean, the woman goes out and plays golf. She does Pilates 3 times a week. I mean, as you said, we're still children in the heart, but we want to learn from everybody. I don't shut down these 40, 30, 20-year-olds, even the teenagers. I learn from them because for me, I can understand. They help me see what they see through their eyes that I didn't get to see, or I can't see because of where I'm at. And the older people, older than me, I'm learning about, you go back to the wars, the depressions and all that stuff, and understanding their struggles were struggles. I don't care what a bank goes, their struggles were struggles, the depression and everything like that. We can't even imagine, you and I, Kelle, we couldn't even imagine going through that. And to hear their stories, Vietnam vets, just, anybody who's gone through the World War I and II, they never even spoke about it because men weren't allowed to, it wasn't their thing to speak about it. So they kept everything in. So just to understand everybody's generation, but to want to learn from everybody and not say, oh, you don't know anything, or no, I know everything. It's just sort of like.
Right. And I totally agree, because it's the same thing. I feel like every person teaches me something because I'm not every person. And I'm so curious about life just in general. And certainly my life experience has exemplified that in a big way. But I totally agree. I love being around young people and older, all people, because they all teach me something. And I'm just curious about people's lives because even though it can seem on the outside that we've had the same experience, we haven't, because we live in we're a different person, and our journeys are not the same in the sense of what we've experienced. We're all in it together, but we've all come from different perspectives, different situations. I love understanding why, I don't judge people for what their thoughts are on things. If they don't agree with me, I don't think that it makes them wrong. I'll just be more curious about, hey, I'd like to understand a little bit more about that. And I think it's almost those things that people have. Another thing that people have forgotten nowadays, it's like, if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong.
Right.
Like, God, that's so honestly such a shame, because you're missing out on really understanding people.
And even learning.
Yes.
I mean, there's lots of people that I'll be like, yeah, that's nope. And then once I listen to them and have the conversation, go, yeah, actually, okay, now I understand.
I think we're also dealing with both directions, is perception versus reality.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of young people who have a perception for whatever reason, because they tend to be a little bit more superficial because they are less experienced. So they got to use other kind of signals that reach them. But on the other side, there's older people who always believed that they would work, hopefully retire, have some fun, and die. But they don't understand that with a place like LinkedIn, that doesn't have to be the case. Even if they just plugged into the show to hear what we're saying, contribute to what they have to say, and go back to whatever they do to have fun. But, there's a lot of people who wish they could go back and have that fire in their belly again, have a little bit pep in their step, have their significant other say, boy, I'm glad you're getting dressed up today and actually serving something or being something again, because people should wear out, not rust out, and they should put it all out on the field. And it's so much fun to see older people dancing, older people laughing, older people singing, and they can do that. And they know what it is. They've been around grandparents of their own who even had a harder life. When people would die at 30, 35 because they couldn't get an infection treated or something like that. So, when I look at what we're able to do, if you can think it, say it in a way, and ultimately it all comes down to value. And that's what it should come down to, is what is, if you were bringing something to the market and you had to get weighed, whatever the product was or the value was, then you should get exactly what it's worth. And if everybody got what it was worth, they would change their behavior, because they'd have to earn it, right? Instead of steal it, take it. Today you could do something and never get caught. You can get caught and never get tried. You can get tried and never get convicted. You can get convicted and never get a sentence. So all of the benefit is for someone to take it. They'll never fine you. If they do, they'll never do nothing to you. So it's those small little mistakes in judgment and character that take people down the road. I got away with it. How much more can I get away with? How many more dumb people are out there that I can take advantage of? And, if you switch the channel and you say, hey, that's short-term gain for long-term pain is what you're getting into, versus a little short-term pain for long-term gain, where you're actually making an investment, because money, I'll tell you, is worthless. It's only as good as who's backing it up, right? And there's been so many people say, well, you'll never have to worry. I mean, the Titanic is, the unsinkable boat on its maiden voyage. I mean, so everybody tells you it should never be talking like that in the first place. But at the same time, if I trust somebody I know and care about, I know I'm safe with whatever I give them. Right? If I say, hold this for me till I come back, or take care of this, I'll have peace of mind knowing they're doing it, knowing they probably do better at taking care of my stuff than I would at my stuff. And that's what you got to do, is in one way, you got to be so much more protective. And on the other side, you got to be so much open. to what's good for you and protect what's bad for you, and have a voice that speaks and speaks directly, not disrespectfully. But sometimes it's you just got to say, hey, that ain't ever going to happen. I'm disappointed you even brought that up.
Right.
And that's what was it, 6 words, and you gave yourself to be like, hey, I'm firm on something like this, and you'll find out how many bullies never stand up for themselves.
Mm.
They're so used to people rolling over and giving what they want that when someone says it ain't going to happen, first of all, they're going to think maybe I shouldn't do this, but more importantly, not importantly, there's easier prey than this person, right? Why go after someone strong when you can still take advantage of someone? Because they're just looking at what they get. They don't care where it comes from. They don't care about your life and what it might affect,
Right.
And that's how it used to be. People used to say, tell me what you're dealing with and we can work with you. You didn't have all these bankruptcies. Bankruptcy was a disgrace, even though it's just a financial matter. Even divorce back in the 50s was you could lose a job.
Yeah.
If someone said, "Oh, he's divorcing," and meanwhile you kept things going, that whatever. So there, this goes back to when people start walking the earth. The same things we're talking about will be here long after we're gone, hopefully. And what can we do while we're here to maybe have a track that moves in the right direction? Because so many people want it back. People take some for granted. They go for some else. It wasn't what they thought, and they can't get back what they left. We can still do that. Like I say, whatever you did yesterday, you can repeat tomorrow. Why not take a day and do something you always want to do, but we're afraid to do? And I think that's what we talk about here is take action. That's where you'll get the best benefit. You'll learn the most, and maybe you'll surprise yourself. And what if it was to work so much better than what you've been doing? And if not, learn or earn. So anyways, in closing, we did pretty good today, hour and 12 minutes. What's your final words, Kelle and Christy?
Well, thank you for
I was just seeing that a few people were saying hi, and I wonder if it's because of the time change. Like, I'm in Arizona, so our clocks don't change, but I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to be late because I was like, oh God, did it change tonight or tomorrow? So a few people that just came in at the top of the hour, I have a feeling that the spring forward time change probably impacted them in some way. But this has been a very nostalgic and awesome Sunday. I mean, just heartwarming stories. And it just, again, I always challenge people, come and tell me that you don't feel better at the end. So I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Truly 2 of my favorite humans here on LinkedIn. And I'm so grateful I got to spend it with you guys. There you go, Christy. Sorry.
Okay. Me?
Yes.
No, I appreciate you guys letting me pop on Sunday. I love this LinkedIn Live. Even when I'm so busy, I get back on the replays. And as I've told Don, every time I do somebody's resume or whatever, I'm like, okay, these are the people you need to follow because you're going to learn from them. And it's a feel good. I mean, we talk about some heavy conversations, but it's all about empowering yourself. And Kelle, we'll be seeing each other soon because Kelle is going to help me. She's going to come and watch my dogs while I'm in Asia.
Well, I can't thank both of you enough. There's nothing like smiles that last miles here, and good thoughts and intentions. And, when you share, like I say, you're hearing your story just at the same time everybody else is. But more importantly, it is your story. It's something you should be proud of. Whatever it was, it got you to where you are, and you don't have to go back, and you don't have to do anything but learn, and more importantly, help other people learn who you hope never have to go through certain things that you went through, and if you could, and that's really the most encouraging thing. And some people will share that with you. Some people won't, but it's not important that we know. It's important that they know and can do. And, every day doing this, how many takeaways, how many good feelings do you need to really trust yourself to say, this is healthy? And I think that's really the key. We talk about thoughts, philosophies, perspectives. It's what's healthy for you is what you should be doing, whether it's what you eat, who you hang out with, what you think about. But this is stimulation, because Paul's story about meeting somebody at an airport and helping them out with an app, little things, right? But why not pair up with somebody than be alone? Right? I'm always looking to make conversation wherever I'm at if someone's open to it, and you create opportunities that way. And you never know. You keep on knocking on doors, someone's going to open, and it might surprise you. At least it'll make for a good story the next time we have a LinkedIn Live. So come back tomorrow. Gretchen Skelka's here, and we're going to see Christy and Kelle again this week, Thursday and Friday, and maybe even before then. So with that, have a lovely Sunday. I hope everybody just continues to improve. I'm so proud of everyone here, and it's an honor and a privilege to be with you every day. So take care, and we'll talk again. And actually, I'm talking to Dan, who's on the screen in about an hour. So with that said, always looking to make more friends. Take care. Bye for now.